Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. So, remember how I told you that White's plan is to play knight b3, knight c5, hook a knight on there, but what is Black's plan? Right, so Black's plan is sort of similar. Knight here, or here. So it's also a maneuvering process, but there's got to be something else, right? The plan is not just you get one piece there, right? It's not just that. And let me tell you what my plan is. First of all, I have to say that this bishop is horrible. This bishop is horrible because the wall surrounds it. It's like closed right now. It's jailed in. So essentially, I have to find a way out. And that requires the movement of all my pieces. So you'll sort of see this plan take shape. f6, bishop t8, bishop to g6, moving the knight to d6, and you'll see how that goes. Rook f3, f6. So I'm starting my plan. g4, knight d6. I'm not trying to budge anything. I'm not going to play knight h4. I could, though, and push g5. That's a good thought. Knight h4, rook h3, and g5. That's interesting. That's one way to approach it. But I decided knight d6. Keep it central. Maybe play knight e4. Maybe play knight c4. Knight b3. Bishop d8. Doesn't matter if you play knight c5. I'm still going to play bishop to g6. Bishop to d3. f5. Now, I change up my plan a little bit because number one, bishop to g6 is not too great anymore because bishop takes, pawn takes, and rook to h3, queen to d3. So it's more like, it's about to open up, right? So that's the complicated thing. So here I pivoted. I said I'm going to play f5 because I said bishop g6 is no longer the best move because number one, takes, knight to c5, followed by queen to d3, maybe even rook to h3, and some sort of doubling down this file, right? It just kind of felt like it wasn't great. So then I said, I'm going to save my bishop back. I'm going to play f5. If you play g5, I'm going to play bishop to h5, right? Give myself more options. Rook h3 happened, and now bishop to g6. I wanted to bring the bishop in, but this allows g5. So what should I have done instead? Well, knight to e4. Asserting the knight a very strong square, right? And saying, if you take, I'm going to take with the f-pawn. I'm going to now threaten the pawn, and it's going to make my life easier. Even though this bishop is bad for now, I have targets, and white does not. So that's the thing. I should have played knight e4 here, but I played bishop to g6. g5, knight e4. So obviously the bishop does not look great on g6. It has no purpose. But one day I'm changing my plan now once again. What is my plan? Well, king to f7, rook to h8, h6. Just try to break. Bishop to e2, queen to d6. Now I'm trying to take advantage of all these holes in white's position. Queen to f1, king to f7. I'm continuing with my plan. King to e7 to be like a prophylactic move against this knight d3, knight e5 idea. But here our friend Runinja goes wild. Bishop takes b5. I take, queen takes f4. Then after queen d2, I just start gobbling up pawns. I say, I'll trade. And after knight to g5, rook to h4, I take. And here I'm slowly wrapping it up, right? I'm trapping the rook. I'm going for it, and look at this. Knight, rook to g8, knight to f6, rook to h5, and the ladder mate. There we go. So, let's review this game. So what really happened that allowed me to win here? So the opening was perfect. I mean, there was nothing to critique about the opening. We just went about our respective business. Runinja set up a post for the knight, and eventually this rook a2 move, I have to say, is a little bit passive. I would suggest queen d2, because after queen takes b2, well, the queen is trapped again. So queen can't go there. So what do I have to do? Well, I could play rook to c8 for one. I could play queen to d6. I don't know, but queen to d2 is probably a much more active way to defend this pawn than rook a2, which is, I would say, somewhat passive. b5, a5, bishop to d7. So I'm just saying you cannot allow f5 here. And now all of a sudden the game changes dynamics a little bit with this b4 move, because white goes for this outpost, but black goes for these squares as well. So it's quite interesting, and now it's this shift of plan, like I told you, right? So after knight d6, I'm just moving my things out, and here I'm still maneuvering, and the only move that decided the game was this move, bishop takes b5. Now, if white played the move bishop to d1, or queen, I don't know, rook to e3, rook to d3, just as long as white held the position steady and kept it closed. Like, for example, black has many options here. Rook here, rook here. But white also has some play to deal with coming down the H file. So it gets really complicated. And so I would say two things about this game. Number one, the bishop sacrificing here just, it wasn't worth it. And number two, I was a little bit disappointed to see that this knight never landed on c5, because that's the only purpose of playing b4 and having a pawn on d4 is you're going to place this knight here and you're going to make up for it by concealing this weakness. But now that the knight is on a very, mediocre, not great square, it's sort of like this is much more of a weakness than it is some potential asset. But if the knight was here, then this c3 pawn would look like much less of a weakness than it is now. So that's my takeaway as for what happened. Eventually I was able to gobble through all the pawns and the pieces. That was good, but man, I would say this game was very closed. It was close, it was tight, and the only thing I won by was because our friend Runinja went for a Hail Mary. Other than that, the knight just had to get to c5, and the c3 pawn was more of a weakness than it was an asset. So remember, have fun, don't shy away from mistakes, remember to look for your curiosity, remember to always calculate the variations. I know it's the hardest part. You go, what happens if he does this? What happens if my opponent does this? What happens if she does this? But it's all about this process of elimination and procedural method that's going to help you excel in chess. And that's helped me, that I've become more patient with myself. My thought process has gotten slow, but it's also gotten very detailed, and I can do that within a short and a fast amount of time, And with practice, with love, makes it all the better. So thank you, and I will see you next time.